Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape From Tarkov video, this time featuring my take on the top 3 builds for the MPX, from the budget option to the top tier fully tricked out version. The MPX has always been one of my favorite SMGs in Tarkov, even back when 9mm wasn't really the greatest ammo type. It just looks really cool and it's so easy to build a low recoil setup that is great for leg meta kills or headshot sprays. After the 9mm buff and with the addition of the 7N31 armor piercing ammo, it's a serious threat, and the high fire rate combined with the insane low recoil make it a very fast killing weapon when you can land your shots through armor or to the head. It's kind of an interesting one in terms of builds as well, because no matter how you build an MPX, the recoil is going to be quite low even on a simple build. This gives you some freedom with your attachments since you don't need to min-max every part. You might notice that the budget build is a little pricey compared to other 9mm weapons, but building it up to the mid-tier or even top-tier versions doesn't cost a lot of extra cash when compared to upgrading other weapons. With that intro out of the way though, let's take a look at the builds, starting with a fairly simple, compact MPX build that can get you started with using this thing. The MPX can be purchased from Peacekeeper level 2 or on the flea market for about 45,000 rubles, so it's kind of expensive for the base gun, but the upgrades are usually very cost effective. Even the basic build is pretty effective, and you can just slap a foregrip and sight on there and use it. Once you hit Peacekeeper level 3, which can be unlocked around level 18 if you have the quest done, you get some extremely cost effective recoil focused parts that this build is based around. To start off, you can swap the muzzle device out for the MPX carbine brake, which is the top tier recoil attachment for the muzzle and only runs about $50. It's a great attachment and can turn any MPX into a laser beam. For a suppressor on the budget build, I would recommend using the Rotor 43 9x19 suppressor off the flea market, which can be as low as 10,000 rubles. This has some decent recoil reduction too, and you'll only gain about 3 points of recoil by using this instead. Alternatively, you can buy a drill off the market and trade to mechanic level 2 for the Osprey suppressor, which is the top tier 9mm suppressor, and will only run you about 20,000 rubles most days. The MPX handguard comes with rails for attachments by default, so for this budget build, I went with the Zenit RK4 grip from Skier level 2. You can also use pretty much any of the grips at Peacekeeper level 3 like the RVG or skeletonized grip and get roughly the same results. I also add my trusty X400 flashlight onto pretty much all of my builds, but swap this for whatever you prefer as the tactical device. Next up, one of the best attachments for the MPX in Tarkov is the PMM ULSS stock, which is only about $55 at Peacekeeper level 3 and gets you essentially best in slot recoil stats for a very cheap price. For the pistol grip on this build, you can leave the default option if you want, but I use the Hogue rubber grip at Peacekeeper level 3. Finally, the sight on this one is an EOTech hollow sight, but you can swap this for whatever you prefer. When this build's all put together, you're looking at 28 recoil and about 62 ergonomics, for a grand total of around 98,000 rubles. If you run this suppressed, the build comes out with 31 recoil and about 53 ergonomics, for about 110,000 rubles total, which I think is pretty great for a suppressed build. Next up for this video, we'll be going over what I came up with for a mid-tier MPX with some more significant modding done to it, including a longer barrel. This build is even more of a low recoil laser, and the longer barrel improves the muzzle velocity, which makes it quite a bit easier to use at medium range, which is a great upgrade to the setup. All things considered, this build is a big improvement on the budget build in terms of performance, and the price increase between the two is surprisingly low in my opinion. First up, the most important part swap here is to the 14-inch extended barrel, which is sold by Peacekeeper level 4, so you'll need to have that unlocked. I did want to include the 10-inch barrel somewhere in this video, but it doesn't accept the carbine brake for some reason, making the 14-inch barrel a better option all around. For the muzzle device, you can take the MPX carbine brake for the maximum recoil reduction, or if you want to run suppressed, use the Osprey 9mm suppressor from the flea market, or use the drill trade at mechanic level 2. Next, the handguard has been changed to the Midwest M-Lock 10-inch handguard for the MPX, which gets you a recoil buff and some extra ergonomics. This handguard takes M-Lock rails as well, so you'll need a set of those for attachments. The grip on this build has been upgraded to the Zenit RK0 foregrip from Skier level 3, which is one of the most cost-effective grips in the game right now. Like I said earlier though, the recoil is low enough on the MPX that you can easily swap this out and barely notice the difference. I've also got the X400 flashlight on here, but feel free to swap this for your preferred light or laser. For the pistol grip and stock, I'm using the same ones from the budget build, the PMM ULSS stock for the MPX, and then the Hogue rubber pistol grip. Finally, the last part that I tossed on here is the Geissele SCH charging handle for the extra ergonomics points. When this build is all put together, you're looking at 23 recoil and about 59 ergonomics when unsuppressed, for a total cost of about 125,000 rubles. If you run it with the Osprey suppressor, it's got 25 recoil and 50 ergonomics for about 140,000 rubles total. Either way, I think this build offers an amazing price to performance ratio, and if you're building an MPX, it's not much of a jump in price to skip the budget build and use this one instead. For the last build in this video, I've got what I would say is one of my favorite builds in the entire game based purely on its looks, and the fact that it also works really well is just the icing on the cake. This build is another extended barrel setup with the Lancer handguard, which changes the silhouette of the gun quite a bit and honestly makes it look more like an assault rifle, which is pretty cool. This build is honestly not much of a step up from the mid tier in terms of recoil numbers. You can dump lots of money into an MPX, but the recoil only goes down so low because the percentages don't add up very much. There is a few parts that can bring the recoil down even below 20, but as you'll see in a minute here, it's kind of a waste to put all the extra money in just to lose 2 points of recoil. First up, you're going to want the 14-inch MPX barrel from Peacekeeper level 4, and then the same muzzle device from the previous build. You can use the MPX carbine brake for loud builds, or the Osprey 9mm suppressor for quiet builds. Next up, the handguard is the Lancer OEM 14-inch M-Lock handguard for the MPX, which in my opinion is the best handguard for the MPX, but I have to put a bit of an asterisk here. Technically, the 14-inch Midwest M-Lock handguard is better than the Lancer, but it's not sold by traders, and the flea market price is absolutely insane. Plus, the 2% extra recoil reduction will maybe cut down one single point of recoil, so it's just not worth it. This same dilemma happens with the stock, but we'll get there in a minute. Next, you'll need M-Lock rails to add attachments, and for the grip on this one, I think there's two solid options for sure. You can go with the RK1 from Skier level 3 if you purely want recoil reduction, but the Fortis Shift grip is also a great choice to add a bunch of ergonomics and only lose about 1 point of recoil. That choice is up to you, but for this build, I'm sticking with the RK1. Next up, the pistol grip on this one is the Naro Arms Graal S pistol grip, which gives you a great ergonomics boost for a fairly reasonable price. For the stock on this build, I highly recommend you stick with the PMM ULSS stock because it's by far the most cost-effective option for an MPX build. However, if you really want to see how low the recoil can go, you can do a combo starting with the SIG retractable stock adapter, then the Mesa Tactical hydraulic buffer tube, finally the HKE1 stock for a very slight extra bit of recoil control. This is technically the best in slot setup, but you're paying an extra 25,000 rubles or more for about 1 point of recoil control, and you lose ergonomics while doing it. Personally, I think it's just a waste of money, but feel free to disagree with me. Finally, I also add the Geissele SCH charging handle, an EOTech hollow sight, and an MBUS rear sight to finish the build off, and then it's all put together. This setup comes out with 21 recoil and around 68 ergonomics for a grand total of 150,000 rubles when unsuppressed. With the Osprey suppressor, you're looking at 23 recoil and 59 ergonomics for about 165,000 rubles. For comparison, the build with the optional stock only cuts off 2 points of recoil, coming in at 9 points, but raises the build cost up to 180,000 rubles. Well, that pretty much covers it for these MPX builds. I hope you found them useful, and I also hope that you can learn to enjoy the MPX as much as I do if you try them out. I think it's such a cool SMG to play around with, and like the M4, you have many different builds to make and experiment with. I really enjoy playing with pretty much any MPX build, and if you have the right ammo, it won't let you down very often. Thanks for checking out the video. I've got links to my Twitch stream, Discord server, and Patreon page down below for anyone interested. And until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.